Welcome, Malcolm! I'm Chiffon from TarotBoba. I'm a game designer, and today we're going to be looking at Animal Crossing New Horizons. One of my favorite games of all times, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be easy on it. So, a couple things to get out of the way. One, you're going to see some interesting glitches with my model since I rigged it myself. And two, unfortunately, I lost the footage of some of the days because I didn't pay attention to a big screen obstruction that I kind of forgot about. So I made that mistake twice. Anyway, I really hope you guys enjoy. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're interested in seeing more, please drop a like and hit the subscribe button if you so desire. I'd love to hear your stories about playing Animal Crossing New Horizons down in the comments below. So without further ado, let's jump into it. I started my Animal Crossing journey the same way that everyone else did, by falling for Nook's corporatized pyramid scheme.
Okay. Oh yes, here you are. Our next step will be taking a picture of you, Chiffon. Oh, and don't worry, take as much time as you need to get yourself looking just the way you want. We'll be ready when you are.
In game design, there are principles of visual hierarchy that help players better navigate the game world, using size, color, contrast, alignment, repetition, proximity, white space, and texture to help create more intuitive user experiences. In languages that read left to right, for example, more important information will often be shown on the left side of the screen and is often assumed to be the default options. Previous Animal Crossing games saw players choosing their gender presentation in a list format, making the top one feel like the priority. But here, it's side by side to minimize the masculine appearing option to be seen as the quote-unquote default. But New Horizons goes one step further. If you press A on the screen, the automatic selection will be the rightmost option. While this seems arbitrary, this is a very deliberate choice to ensure that nobody is prioritized over the other.
Okay, so there we go. Look at me. You can also kind of understand the different hierarchies here with the two, the noses and the mouths also being like, this is the default Animal Crossing nose from past games.
Great point, Past Me. As you can see, there is some level of hierarchy when it comes to past Animal Crossing traits such as the eyes, mouth, and hair. But overall, it's a very well-meaning design just meant to showcase all of the new features of Animal Crossing customization, including, for the first time ever in a mainline game, different skin tones, which is pretty awesome, considering we could only get darker skin tones when we tanned. So I definitely took advantage of that the moment I set my eyes on it. A fairly significant change from past games is now all of the island looks are from one preset rather than generated on the fly. In past games, acres of the town would be split up like a grid and put together like a puzzle. You could change this out through modding, and it was very interesting to see the way the puzzle pieces fit together. My assumption is that it was changed because of the way that terraforming ended up working, and also to make sure that you couldn't access areas of the island early game to help with the tutorial. Animal Crossing's early game tone is what gives the series a lot of charm from the get-go, and part of that narrative is the player being in transit from the very start in the first person. From buses to taxis to trains to planes, the player is always on their way to their new destination when the game begins. New Horizons begins with the player signing up for their ticket to the deserted island, giving a clever narrative reason to ask for names and birthdays without it breaking the immersion too much.
Fun little side note, I actually soft reset to get my favorite villager the first time I played this game, and it took me 10 hours, and I did it. And that is how you know that I am a shiny hunter in Pokemon.
A common criticism of the games was that the island only begins with 2 personality types, whereas older games could have any villager appear as their starting set. Quite frankly, it was because writing dialogue for every villager personality for a tutorial that most people would never see is a lot of money down the drain. This is also why the 3 newcomers are always normal, peppy, and lazy, and campsite villagers are always smug.
I just want to play the freaking game. Our fearless leader himself will be giving a presentation, so I'd hate for you to miss it. Guys, I think I joined a cult. nobody calls themselves a fearless leader or makes their minions call them a fearless leader unless there's like some sort of cult behavior. We're heading there right now if you'd like to move the L to follow us. I would like to not. I would like to go play the game. A fun little side note is that you can't actually pick anything freaking up until you go to the orientation, so you don't really have a choice, which I'm not a super big fan of, unfortunately. I wish that there was a little bit more agency when you start the game, because like the first instinct is to want to go explore, so, you know, gameplay.
I love this game, don't get me wrong, but the tutorial is very hand-holdy, especially in comparison to older titles. The beginning tutorials of the older games were working in Nook's shop for the most part, and granted they were pretty annoying, but they helped immerse the player in the life simulation elements, such as writing letters or speaking to the unique villagers. But here, after playing through once, the motive of just teaching the player different mechanics is kind of hammered over the head, from picking fruits to just picking up branches, which is a pretty intuitive thing that they already had going for it. The slow progression is meant to give a sense of growing the island, but the linear story does pale in comparison to the freedom afforded in previous titles, in my opinion.
Today is the first day of your new life on this pristine, lovely island, so congratulations. It is going to be pristine until I end up making you build a bunch of things on it. I don't like the fact that they point out the fact that it's pristine and then the whole game is about like developing the island. And this is a package deal. As such, Nook Inc. staff will always be here to support you and ensure your comfort and safety. Again, feels very cult-like. But first, you know what? It's not a cult. It's a freaking pyramid scheme, which, I mean, same difference, but first things first. Yes, yes. I joined an MLM. Oh my god, that's what this is. The thing is that you're in the island, you're on the island, you've paid to be on the island, and now your entire thing is that you're making other people move into the island. It's an MLM. I blew this case wide open. Theory confirmed. I'd like you to dream big. I do have certain connections in construction and real estate, and he has connections. This is such a shady thing, like reading in between the lines with just a slightly different like lens. It's hilarious. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's just get started with a simple tent, shall we? Please collect your tent from Timmy or Tommy, then choose a spot to place it. He's evil. He has to be. I know he's giving you your stuff for free, but at what actual cost? Once you've put your tent, please find your way back here. Use your new map if you need it. Well, off you go. I hope you found a great spot. So here's the thing. If the tutorial ended with this, I think that it would be a very effective tutorial. But unfortunately, I think that there's a little bit of work that needed to be done to make it. There's a little bit of work that needed to be done in order to make it a really good tutorial. In general, to just cut back on the ballast. Like, it's not as though it's lacking anything. If anything, there's just too much to it. I feel as though that I might be the only one of that opinion.
And so off I went to find my little slice of paradise. And with a private beach next to me, I couldn't complain. And of course, being honorary overlord of the island, I got to select the place for the 2 villagers as well.
Teddy just wants a freaking treehouse, man. Oh my god, dude, hey. Yeah, I just do all the work. That's my job here.
And one awkward time skip later, we're finally ready for the island-wide party consisting of 6 people.
So, okay, a couple things. One, you're not gonna do anything. Let's be honest, Nook. You're just gonna get me to get the tree branches and the fruits, and you're not gonna do anything.
I wandered around for a while, picked up some mystery apples that might poison us, and of course picked up the tree branches that Nook's back hurt too much to bend down and pick up. Even though I'm supposed to be the human of the Animal Crossing world, I just so happen to become what they call a gopher. The tutorial feels really hand-holdy at this point. Players in the past were able to figure out how to shake down trees and also just generally interact with game mechanics without the game's intervention. There is kind of this lack of trusting the player for picking things up that feels kind of infantilizing in a way. And I don't blame the game developers for this, I just kind of wish that they cut back on this ballast in order to make for a more enjoyable experience. But then again, I'm not one who enjoys collectathons, so perhaps I was in the minority. In my opinion, I feel as though the tutorial could have been replaced by just allowing the player to go around and explore their surroundings, which is a pretty natural instinct for players to have. There wasn't a need to tell them to go pick up any items because it kind of broke the immersion of the game. We already know that those are game mechanics, we don't need to be told them back. If the player was just allowed to go explore, they could probably figure that out on their own, and I feel as though there was a little bit of a missed opportunity to allow the player to answer that call of exploration that they have at the very beginning of the game. But again, just my opinion. And at last, we were finally ready for the island-wide party.
So what's really interesting is that in past games, they actually would just ask you where you're going, and that's how you determined your island or town name in that case. And I remember a lot of people didn't really understand the assignment, and they would just put in the name of like their hometown or something like that, not really realizing that you were actually naming the place that you were going to. So I think this is a little bit of a better approach than just like asking where you're headed, because I think works a little bit better for immersion's sake. Is everyone ready? Let's try saying our ideas all at the same time. Ready, go! Guitar Bro and Buffberg, Nooktopia. It's so funny that the Nooklings, they, like Timmy and Tommy, they just are so unapologetically like loyal to Nook. It's just a little bizarre. I always thought that this was like a Huey, Dewey, Louie situation where they're his nephew, but apparently they're not even related. It's very silly, and I think I really love it. I wish they played it up a little bit more. So Chiffon suggested bubble tea. Yay, of course, everyone loves it. Wow, that's an overwhelmingly positive response. Each and every one of you clapped. I suppose if everyone is in agreement, we could just go with bubble tea. So the funny thing is, if you were just to like spam this, it like completely changes the context, because it feels as though you're just like in a space of NPCs. But like when you're actually playing the game by the books, like it does feel very validating in a very strange way. Well, Chiffon, since you've proven yourself by naming bubble tea, I would like to rely on you for other critical decisions we would like to make on this island. I should have named it TarotBoba, but that's okay. Yes, I hereby name you the the resident representative of bubble tea. Because you're so good at naming, we're gonna leave you in charge of the whole dang island. That is just good business practice. Actually, it reminds me a lot of my dad. My dad will be like, oh, I found this amazing recipe. Like, I really want to make it. And he'll go and buy all the ingredients, and then he'll come back and be like, yeah, do you think you can make it for me?
I've been fairly critical of the game's tutorial so far. I just needed to pause here and just say the attention to detail is absolutely insane. For example, the cups here will actually change color depending on what your native fruit is, and I think that's just so cool.
It's such a cute little animation. I really love that. Having a good time. I know this is a bit much, but if you feel like taking a short nap in your tent, by all means, go ahead. We'll keep the fire burning. Maybe I'll go do that. Sounds good to me, but first, you'll probably want this. Nook, I'm counting on you. Look, man, if you don't keep that fire burning, I'm going to sue, because you made that promise. That is something that is entirely on you, okay? I'm not asking for all that much here, but you gotta keep that fire burning. You said you would, okay? Just a few items that might be useful. To open packages and everything inside, press A, and when you're ready, you can crawl into bed. I wish they wouldn't tell us this. I feel as though they did this in New Leaf too, so this isn't like a criticism specifically of New Horizons, but I feel as though like they should just let you learn these things, because it's not difficult. It's not as though And like, if you get stuck, for sure, like, offer that hint. But I feel as though there's a lot that, like, of a missed opportunity to treat your audience with a little bit more. I keep wanting to say maturity. I can't think of the word, but it's to trust your audience to be able to figure it out and to do these things on their own. But I do love these boxes. Oh my god. So first of all, I was able to open the box right into a drag. Also, I got a pink one. That's so cute. But I do wish that they would trust the players a bit more, but I do love the idea of the little boxes. They could have just had these two things just sitting in your room. They did not have to do the little boxes, but it just kind of lends itself to this idea of this is a new tent. This is your new home and you are moving in. So that's really cute. I also love like all the little interactions, like turning on the radio and turning on the lights. That's not new to this game. I just want to say that's one of my favorite little Animal Crossing things, is that they put a lot of attention to detail in what you can do with the items. I'm sleeping in jeans. That doesn't bode well. Living free, being out there, it's a great feeling. Okay, so here's the thing. We're dreaming about KK Slider. This is a callback to the GameCube games. So this begs the question. I have two theories. One, was the GameCube game our past life? Are we just like reliving this? Or, I know that I'm just kind of being silly, but what I find really interesting is that this is almost like a prophetic dream, because we end up like centering our whole journey on KK. So either way. Oh, but listen up. That rap I gave you about friends, it's pretty key. You'll dig this island life a lot more if you share it with some friends, if that's your scene. Yeah, an island paradise with your best pals sounds pretty groovy to me. Okay, so here's the thing. I am like 50% sure that this was meant to refer to this was meant to refer to the villagers on the island, not like actual real people, because this is something that he brings up when you are playing the game in the GameCube version, which only had memory card to memory card interactions. So it's meant to be like, oh, you're becoming friends with the people on your island. This is a life simulation game. You should be focusing on that. And the thing is, it just doesn't age very well, because this sounds like they're referring to the real life friends. And unfortunately, that would require your friends to buy the game or buy Switch Online, or I should say, buy Switch Online. So a lot of people are like, oh, this is just an advertisement, an in-game advertisement for Switch Online, which I think is really funny, but it does make sense that people would read it that way.
And so, day 2 of our island paradise begins with Nook interrupting us to give us our itemized bill. Nothing says relaxation like bills, taxes, and a Nook phone that you're forced to pay for. I honestly love the fact that this is a callback to older games, because Nook is still the same character as he's always been, except now he's the huge overlord of an island. It genuinely has some moments that can make you laugh if you read it from the correct lens, and I genuinely think it's good storytelling for a game like this. I was actually really pleasantly surprised by the tidbits of humor left throughout the beginnings of the game. It's kind of interesting because New Horizons is often portrayed as the worst written game, yet it has a lot of implications that Nook isn't as kind or benevolent as he always seemed. It's a genuinely interesting way of going about it, and it's kind of a blink and you miss it sort of moment.
Very good. Then this should be a breeze for you. In fact, I think you'll find it much more useful than the phone you already have. So like, he's cutting off our communication from the real world by giving us a phone that we could only use on his island and telling us that our phones won't work anymore. So
that's suspicious.
It's your itemized bill. Just invite 14 of your friends, and if they invite 14 of their friends, then you'll be able to pay it off in no time. So that includes everything: airfare, accommodations, labor, tax, and of course your Nook phone. I didn't ask for any of this. This was not in the fine print. bringing your grand total to the modest sum of 49,800 bells. Interesting. That sounds like an arbitrary number. I am very curious to know if that is actually an arbitrary number or if that's actually calculated.
Good question, me. So this is actually shockingly easy to calculate out and check. For this calculation, we'll be using the buy prices of items since we can assume that sell prices are meant to sell below market value. We just need the sales prices of Nook Miles items and we're set. You see, all Animal Crossing items sell for 4 times less than you can buy it for. So if we took a Nook Miles ticket, which costs 2,000 Nook Miles, and figure out that it sells for 10,000 bells, we know that the buy price would be 40,000. Reducing that down, 1,000 Nook Miles is approximately 20,000 bells, or 20 bells per Nook Mile. But there are bell vouchers in the game, and if you wanted to use that conversion, it's approximately 500 Nook Miles for 3,000 bells, which is a 6-to-1 bell to Nook Mile ratio, which is admittedly a pretty lousy deal. Looking at other items like the construction sign does still point to the market value of 20 bells per Nook Mile based on Nook's buying price. With that said, the New Horizons debt starts at 5,000 Nook Miles, which using the market price would be 10,000 bells. Okay, that's not where I hoped I ended up. Every way to Sunday, unfortunately, this is an arbitrary number. While I love New Horizons, it's hard to deny that a lot about what I loved about the older games got cut in favor of customization, which is unfortunate since the life simulation aspect of the game was what resonated with me so deeply. But it's hard to deny that was definitely the next logical step. One of the biggest disappointments for me was weirdly seeing that the villagers would stay on your island until you gave them permission to leave. While this was great at first, I noticed over time it wore down my experience. Your most recent villager wouldn't even move out unless you used a campsite. In past games, if you left your island, or town in this case, unattended for too long, villagers would move away, leaving behind only a mere letter. You could only stop them if you caught them before they left. It gave you a reason to talk to them, to check in daily. Because if they moved away, you couldn't get them back that easily. You had to have a bunch of villagers move in and out before you could get that specific villager back. There were consequences for neglecting your friends. Like a Nuzlocke, the attachments you formed with even the ugliest villagers transcended game after game because of that one time they left without saying goodbye. The thing that gave villagers meaning was the knowledge that you could lose them. In recent memory, New Horizons has been marred with criticisms, like lack of updates and players clamoring for big changes. And while I agree with a lot of the quality of life ones that are really simple to change, there are a lot of criticisms here that I find to be rather unfair, and I kind of wanted to address them. As a game designer, I do feel like I have some sort of insight into why these things are, but please take my opinions with a grain of salt because they are just my opinions. Criticism number 1, the game should continue updating. I'm gonna break some hearts right now and just let you know that New Horizons is likely never gonna get another significant update, because Nintendo has actually stated as such. There would be nothing to gain and everything to lose by continuing to update the game. You see, there's kind of this misconception that the devs sat down one day, created the update, and then released it. But in reality, everything up until the 2.0 update was already at least partially started when the game launched. The events, for example, were most likely ready to go and released month by month. The reason for that is to ensure a longer player engagement with the game, and also extended the lifespan so that they could sell more Switch Online memberships, simple as that. But also, the player drop-off was a lot later, which allowed more players to buy the game to play with their friends. So it was a great marketing strategy and also just helped players enjoy the game a little bit more. The designers didn't sit down and create these new systems entirely. The majority of updates were systems that had traces back to the initial launch. To create new content for the game would take thousands of dollars of bug testing, coding, arting, and writing for a game that is on a limited lifespan console and has already finished its lifetime. There would be a zero profit margin for the game. The 2.0 update brought the final remaining players who were on the fence about buying the game, and future updates would likely cost more money than it would generate. Criticism number 2. New Leaf had a major update after many years, so New Horizons should too. So here's the thing. New Leaf's Welcome Amiibo update was actually a lot smaller than New Horizons, as indicated by the version numbers never raising above 1. Just for some context, version numbers are very specific. The first number always indicates a major change, and after the decimal are smaller changes. And Welcome Amiibo's update was version 1.4, not 2.0. It was also introduced as a segue into Happy Home Designer, which might sound a little bit familiar. Happy Home Designer was a spin-off game that was being sold, and Nintendo wanted to market that by bringing New Leaf back and releasing a new version of the game for players to enjoy and maybe bring some more people into buying it. So, with Happy Home Paradise, that's exactly what Nintendo was doing again. The equivalent to the Welcome Amiibo update in modern times was the 2.0 update for Animal Crossing New Horizons. Criticism number 3. They should release an update to fix how frustrating online play is. This was a criticism I mainly saw while the game was still really popular, and I agree that online is frustrating, tedious, and the intrusiveness and just waiting for people to join the island is really frustrating. But to change a post-release isn't very feasible and is a huge task. Networking is the most tedious and finicky part of game development, by far. And while I wish it was better to start, the chances of actually changing it are very, very minuscule because it takes so much effort and time just to get the system working. The game itself was already on a crunch schedule, it was already delayed, and there was no way that they were going to overhaul this massive part of the game just for it to be a little bit more concise and better. The fact that we got online play, I think they thought was enough, which is kind of sad, but it is what it is. Criticism number 4. Here are the things that I personally think should be added into Animal Crossing New Horizons. Okay, so this is more of a general one that I keep hearing. And while I agree with the quality of life changes, such as scrapping additional dialogue segments and optimizing crafting, New Horizons was already a game that suffered a lot of burnout and pushbacks. There was a reason that so many features were missing at launch. The games industry promotes burnout culture to meet with very strict deadlines that can't be pushed back or changed due to things like merch launches that can't be delayed. The designer's task is to keep within scope, not to make the most complex experience. If you look at games like Scarlet and Violet, for example, they were games that went above and beyond over their scope, and because of that, they had to sacrifice stuff like polish and optimization. There's kind of no way that you can balance the two things. You either have to cut back on the amount of stuff you add in, or you have to cut back on the polish and time that you have to test it. And criticism number 5, there should be a new game soon. Animal Crossing New Horizons came out 7 years after New Leaf. It was pushed back and delayed because of the aforementioned burnout and deadlines that were enforced. As somebody who has been playing since the GameCube era of Animal Crossing, I can tell you that waiting for the next Animal Crossing game is equal parts frustrating and exciting. The games take ages to make. The amount of furniture that they have to develop, the amount of coding that they have to do to always one-up themselves is just staggering. And I am so amazed every time they come out with a new game at what they were able to accomplish. So, if we don't get a new game, even by the end of 7 years, I would be personally very understanding. But I am astounded that people are expecting a new Animal Crossing launch so soon after New Horizons came out. My advice to those people, find a way to enjoy the game that we already have, or if you haven't played the past games, they're really great too. I highly recommend them. But let's not promote those burnout ideals of just rushing out games as fast as we can, or trying to shove as much ballast as we can into a game that is already extremely complicated. I hope those criticisms make sense. I hope that these things don't sound too nitpicky or rude. I just want to help people find peace within these criticisms that they are very passionate about. And I hope that they at least make a little bit more sense now. Animal Crossing is my favorite series, and analyzing it like this has been an absolute blast. If you're interested in more game design related videos, or just gameplay videos in general, hit that subscribe button and drop me a like. I'm a new channel, so it would help me a lot. And also let me know if you'd like to see me play any other games. Do you have good memories of Animal Crossing? Let me know down in the comments below.